Professor Matthew England has been coming to these Sydney beaches for as long as he can remember.
I love the ocean. Even as a 3, 4, 5-year-old, I actually once terrified my parents by running off at the beach and going to a rock pool and spending an hour looking at all the marine life in this rock pool. And they couldn't find me. It was a big surf day, and they literally, they'd called the police and they thought they'd lost their kid.
But that experience didn't keep him away. He visited the beach most weekends, even while studying science at the University of Sydney.
And I had no idea that my passion for marine life and marine ecology, which was really just born out of being a little 5-year-old kid studying starfish in a rock pool, that 15 years later I'd be at a university studying maths and physics, and somehow the two fields could come together. And it was a great discovery for me. It really changed the course of my degree. Suddenly, I went into a classroom where equations were being written across the board, but they were the equations of motion for the ocean. It was the mathematics of the ocean.
Professor England is now regarded as one of the world's leading experts on the role oceans play in regulating the world's climate.
The summer to winter cycle is made more temperate by having oceans on our planet. The oceans absorb huge amounts of heat during summer, and that buffers the heat extremes we would otherwise see. And then in winter, that heat gets released back into the atmosphere, and so we benefit from a free air conditioning service globally by having the oceans absorb heat during summer, release that heat back into the system during winter.
But that air conditioning system isn't working as it once did. By loading the atmosphere with greenhouse gases, we're forcing oceans to absorb even more heat.
There's a tremendous benefit to the oceans absorbing heat during climate change because it takes heat away from the atmosphere, but there's payback through these processes like sea level rise, ice melt, coral bleaching, and it's those processes of payback where my research sits. It's trying to understand exactly how this heat uptake occurs, where it's happening, how it affects the ocean currents, and how those changes to the ocean currents feed back into the atmosphere.
His research is painting an alarming picture. Professor England says our oceans are effectively being hit by a sledgehammer.
And the reason I call it a sledgehammer is that, we can go back into Earth's past climate and we see very subtle variations in forcing. So Milankovitch cycles and paleoclimate changes that are quite subtle compared to the big perturbation we're imposing today with greenhouse gases. And so globally, greenhouse gases are changing the textbook description of the oceans. Regionally, each current itself is also changing.
In the southern hemisphere, one of the biggest impacts is playing out in Antarctica, where warming water is melting ice shelves.
This warm water that gets to the ice shelves and melts the ice shelves, that itself doesn't raise sea levels, but the ice shelves buttress the ice sheets behind them. And once you melt those ice shelves, it's well known that you greatly accelerate the stream flow of the actual land ice.
And if that happens, the rate of global sea level rise will also dramatically increase.
We do have some deep knowledge of some of the thresholds globally and the ones we shouldn't pass, but it's not like there's an exact number. Cross 2 degrees Celsius and we're doomed. Keep it below and things will be okay. Even at 1.9, there are a whole number of risks. It's just every fraction of a degree Celsius stacks the odds of even higher of some of these tipping points being passed.
Professor England's lifetime of dedication to understanding our oceans has seen him awarded the prestigious Jaeger Medal from the Australian Academy of Science.
As scientists, it's just nice to know when you put so much effort into trying to discover something, trying to understand how the oceans work, that it's made a difference and that somebody else has noticed.